Am I the asshole for exposing my parents' dark secret at a family reunion? You know how every family has its secrets? Some people joke about it, oh, Grandma won't tell us what she did during the 60s, or Uncle Joe disappears for hours every Christmas. That kind of harmless mystery. But what if you grew up feeling like your entire life was a secret? Let me back up. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and from the outside, I had what you'd probably call an ideal suburban childhood. Think manicured lawns, Saturday morning soccer games, PTA moms, and the constant hum of lawnmowers in the summer. My dad's a lawyer, sharp suits, briefcase, always had an answer for everything. My mom? A second-grade teacher, sweet but reserved. I have one older brother, Ethan. He's 32 now, married with a kid of his own. If you looked at us from across the street, you'd think, damn, those people have it together. And honestly, that's how we were taught to be seen. Appearances mattered. Every Christmas photo had to be perfect. Every interaction with neighbors needed to come with a smile. My mom ironed our school clothes even when we were in high school. And it wasn't just pride, it felt performative. I didn't realize it then, but I grew up in a house full of masks. Even as a kid, I sensed something strange. It wasn't anything loud or dramatic. It was the absence of certain things. Like, I never once saw my parents kiss. Not even a quick peck on the cheek. No holding hands. No affectionate teasing. They didn't fight either, not in front of us, at least. It was just neutral. Like two roommates playing house. They never talked about their lives before us. I'd ask innocent questions, where did you and Dad meet, or did you have any pets when you were little? And they'd brush it off with vague answers. Or change the subject. I remember one time I was about 8 and had to do a family tree project for school. Simple stuff, where your grandparents are from, what jobs they had, who your cousins are. That kind of thing. My parents freaked out. My mom told me to just make something up if I couldn't remember. I told her, but I don't know anything. She got flustered, said she'd help me with it later. She never did. When I pressed again, my dad said, that stuff isn't important. Focus on the future, not the past. I got a C on the project. But even worse? When I told my teacher my parents didn't help me, she looked at me with this sad little expression and said, I'm sorry, sweetie. That memory stuck with me. As I got older, the emotional distance between us became more obvious. Ethan moved out at 18, joined the Navy, and never looked back. He barely called. When he did visit, he and Dad would get into these quiet arguments, nothing explosive, just sharp tones and lots of passive-aggressive jabs. He wouldn't stay more than a weekend. He didn't even come home for Thanksgiving one year. My mom cried in the kitchen, but she didn't say anything. She never did. I stayed longer. Went to a local college. Tried to play the good daughter role. But the older I got, the more I realized we never talked about anything real. No advice about dating, no deep talks about dreams or fears. Just how are your classes, and don't forget to check your tire pressure. And every time I brought up extended family, asking about my mom's sister I'd only seen in photos, or why we never visited my dad's side of the family, they'd shut it down. No time, they'd say. Or, we don't talk to them anymore. No explanation. No stories. Nothing. About 2 months ago, I got a group email from someone named Karen Whitfield. I didn't recognize the name, but the subject line read, Whitfield Farrell Family Reunion, it's finally happening. I opened it, a little confused, and saw that it was a mass invite to a family reunion on my mom's side. Apparently, they'd been trying to organize one for over a decade, and I forwarded it to my parents with a simple, did you see this? An hour later, my mom called me. She sounded panicked. Don't go, she said. No hello, no small talk. Just that. Wait, what? Why? It's complicated. Just trust us, honey. It's not a good idea. My dad got on the line too. For the first time in my life, he sounded emotional. Angry, even. "There's nothing for you there," he said. "Please. Just let this one go." The call ended awkwardly. They didn't yell, they didn't threaten, but the energy was charged. Like they were scared. Truly scared. And that made me want to go even more. I debated it for a few days. I even talked to Ethan, which I rarely do. When I told him about the reunion and how weirdly Mom and Dad reacted, he got quiet. Then he said, "If you're going, prepare yourself." I asked him what that meant. He said, "Some things once known can't be unknown. Don't expect anything to be the same after." It felt like something out of a movie. Like I was being warned away from uncovering buried treasure that was cursed. But how do you not go after something like that? I told them I was going. My mom cried. My dad didn't speak to me for 3 days. I started having dreams, fuzzy, chaotic dreams about people I didn't know and voices I didn't recognize. I chalked it up to nerves. I packed my things and drove out to the reunion the following Saturday. It was held about 4 hours from where I live, in this massive property near a lake. Rolling hills. Cabins. Bonfires. The works. It was beautiful. And terrifying. Because the moment I arrived, everything changed. I pulled up and immediately felt out of place. Not because people were unfriendly, on the contrary, I was met with warm smiles and hugs and laughter. But because they all knew each other. They had memories, inside jokes, family resemblance. There were dozens of people with my mother's eyes. Or my dad's jawline. It was like walking into a parallel version of my life, one where I had grown up surrounded by a huge, loving family I'd never met. A woman in her 60s approached me and said, "You must be Renee's daughter." "That's my mom's name." I nodded, a little stunned. She hugged me like she'd known me forever. "I'm your Aunt Margaret," she said, beaming. "Oh, honey, you look just like your grandma." I blinked. "Grandma June?" She paused. "No. Your other grandma. Clara." I had never heard that name in my life. That night, there was a big welcome dinner. Tables lined up under string lights, food spread out buffet style, music playing from a Bluetooth speaker. I sat with people I barely knew. And yet, they knew me. They told me stories, how they remembered me as a baby, how my mom used to be the life of the party, how my dad was quiet but always kind. They shared photos, grainy old prints of my parents in their 20s, smiling, holding drinks, dancing. One photo showed my mom, pregnant. With me, presumably. But standing beside her wasn't my dad. It was a man I didn't recognize. Arm around her waist. Smiling wide. I asked who he was. People at the table got quiet. Then someone muttered, "That's Robert." "Robert who?" They exchanged glances. One woman said, "You really don't know?" I shook my head, heart pounding. She leaned in and whispered, "That's your real father." I wish I could tell you that the rest of the family reunion was full of laughter and warm memories. But after that night, I couldn't focus on anything except one burning question. Who the hell is Emily? Because I'm not her. My name is Rachel. That's the name on my birth certificate, on every school. It was the second day of the reunion. Mid-afternoon. People were lounging around on picnic blankets or playing lawn games. I wandered off from the main group, a bit overstimulated, and found myself seated next to a frail older woman who introduced herself as Aunt Florence. She had snowy white hair pulled into a braid, thin silver-rimmed glasses, and this soft voice that made you lean in to hear her better. We were talking about nothing important, weather, the view, how she liked the potato salad, when she suddenly turned to me, smiled so sweetly, and said, "Emily, you look just like your mother at your age." I paused. Blinked. I figured she meant my mom, Renee. Maybe she just mixed up the name. So I smiled politely and said, "I think you mean Rachel." "I'm Rachel." And her expression didn't shift into embarrassment. She didn't laugh it off or correct herself. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then she looked down at her lap and said, with this strange distance in her voice, "Oh, right. I forgot they changed it after the thing." "The what?" I gently asked. "After what thing?" But her whole energy shifted. Her shoulders stiffened. Her hands, spotted, trembling, started to shake. She gripped her skirt like she was bracing herself against a wave. Her lips parted like she might say more, but then her husband, a man I hadn't even noticed until then, appeared behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. He was calm, but intentional. "It's time for her medication," he said. "She needs to rest." He looked at me, directly in my eyes, as he guided her up and away. And the expression on his face wasn't one of kindness or apology. It was warning. I didn't speak to anyone else that day. I didn't go to the bonfire that night or the farewell brunch the next morning. I left early. I got in my car, and I drove the 4 hours home in a fog. My hands gripping the steering wheel so tight they were stiff by the time I pulled into my apartment complex. My brain was screaming the entire drive. Emily. Changed after the thing. They changed it. Who is they? What was the thing? That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed. Turned. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Florence's expression, soft, then confused, then afraid. Like she'd accidentally let something out that had been locked up for years. And then the question came back louder than ever. What else have they been hiding from me? At 3:12 a.m., I got out of bed, grabbed my laptop, and sat on the living room floor. I pulled up my own birth records first. There was nothing suspicious at face value. My name, Rachel Marie Thompson, born to Renee and David Thompson, in the same city I grew up in. All the standard information. But something about it felt too clean. Too surface level. Then I tried looking for Emily Thompson in public databases. I didn't really expect anything, but there it was. One hit. And Emily Renee Whitfield, born just 2 years before me. Same birth hospital. Mother listed as Renee Whitfield. Whitfield is my mom's maiden name. No father listed. I sat frozen, staring at that screen. I checked the birth date again. Emily would have been born 2 years before me. But there's no death certificate. No adoption record. No follow-up. It was like she was erased. Then I started thinking in loops. Am I adopted? Am I her? Was there another child before me? Did she die? Why did Florence think I was her? And then I did something I probably should have done a long time ago. I called Ethan. It was past 4 a.m., but he answered on the second ring. He sounded groggy, but not annoyed. "Been waiting for this," he said. For a second, I didn't speak. I just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding. Finally, I asked, "Who is Emily?" There was a pause. Long enough for me to think he might hang up. Then he said, "So Florence told you." She called me that like it was normal. And then she said they changed it. After something. Another long pause. Then Ethan said, "I think it's time we talk." But not over the phone. We met at our childhood home 2 days later. Our parents were conveniently away for the weekend on a church retreat. It was the first time I'd been back in over a year. The house felt smaller. Dimmer. Ethan didn't waste time. He led me straight up to the attic. "Now, here's the thing," Our attic had always been off limits. Not in a "there's asbestos up there" kind of way. More like, "don't ask questions, there's nothing up there for you" kind of way. Our parents kept it locked. Always. But Ethan had a key. "Found it in Dad's desk drawer when I was 17, he said. "Didn't go up until I was 18. "Been waiting for the right time to tell you what I found." We opened the hatch and climbed the rickety steps. It smelled like dust and would rot. Boxes. Dozens of them. All neatly labeled, "Taxes 1994. Christmas ornaments. Books, donate." All lies. Ethan moved quickly, pulling one specific box from behind a stack of plastic bins. It was unlabeled. Old. Taped shut. He opened it. Inside were documents. Photos. Journals. Newspaper clippings. And a small, pink hospital bracelet. The name printed on the band? Whitfield, Emily R. D.O.B., February 14, 1995. My birthday is listed as February 14, 1997. Exactly 2 years later. I picked up a photo. A baby. Big brown eyes. A little swirl of dark hair. I recognized the smile. Because it was mine. So here's what Ethan told me. Emily was real. She was born 2 years before me. To Renee Whitfield. No father on the record. But according to the journals, kept by my mother, I should mention, Emily was not a well baby. She had seizures. Developmental delays. Endless hospital visits. There were therapy records. Medical bills. Even a typed letter from a specialist that said, "Prognosis uncertain. Recommending further evaluation for genetic conditions." And then, nothing. No death certificate. No adoption paperwork. Just a gap. And then a fresh birth certificate 2 years later. Mine. Ethan looked at me and said the words I will never forget. They didn't have another kid, Rachel. They didn't adopt. They renamed you. You ever have that feeling that your entire life, every memory, every identity marker, every moment you thought was real, is suddenly unstable? Like the foundation cracked, and now every step feels like it might fall out from under you? That was me, last week. After my brother Ethan and I opened that box in the attic, after I held that hospital bracelet with the name Emily R. Whitfield and saw that photo of a baby who looked eerily like me, I knew I couldn't stop digging. Because if they'd hidden that much from me, what else had they buried? I needed the truth. Even if it ruined everything. I didn't sleep much after that day. Ethan and I agreed to keep quiet about what we'd found, at least until I could confirm more. I needed documentation. Evidence. Not just memories or speculation. I wanted proof. So over the next week, I became obsessed. I went back to my apartment and started combing through every box I'd brought from home over the years. Old school records. Medical papers. Photos. Birthday cards. I paid for multiple online background checks, on myself, on my parents, even on my mom's maiden name. But the most significant discovery came from a place I hadn't even thought about in years, my dad's old cloud drive. See, back in college, when I got my first laptop, my dad helped me set up backup storage. He gave me access to his own cloud account so I could copy files over. I hadn't touched it in nearly a decade. But I still remembered the password. Same one he used for everything, Socrates 1980. And just like that, I was in. At first, it was boring. Tax records, old case files, scanned receipts. Then, buried under a folder labeled archive_misc_private, I found a subfolder titled EMRW_DOCS. And I swear, when I opened it, my heart stopped. There were over 30 documents inside. Some scanned. Some digital originals. The file names were vague: order_99.pdf, intake1.jpg, redact_notice.docs. I clicked the first one. It was a scanned birth certificate from a different state. Name, Emily Rose, last name redacted. Mother, unknown. Father, unknown. Date of birth, February 14, 1995. Place of birth, redacted, small town in a different state. I stared at it for a full minute, my hands frozen on the trackpad. It wasn't just the wrong name. It wasn't just the wrong place. It was a different life. And one I had no memory of. The next file was a scanned court document. It was stamped, Confidential, Child Protection Services. Date, November 1999. Case reference, State vs. Redacted cult name. Title, Protective Custody and Emergency Identity Change, minor Emily Rose, redacted. Details included: removal of child from a dangerous ideological compound. Emergency foster placement pending long-term guardianship. Legal name change to be initiated within 6 months. Child to be placed in closed identity protocol to avoid media exposure and protect from potential group retaliation or influence. In plainer terms, I had been rescued from a cult. Then I found it. A grainy newspaper scan. Dated October 31, 1999. Headline: Local cult raided by federal agents, leader arrested, multiple children taken into protective custody. The article was short but chilling. It described a compound in a rural area where children were allegedly raised under strict isolation, exposed to indoctrination practices, and denied outside education or medical care. The leader, a man named Jonathan, redacted, had been arrested for charges ranging from child endangerment to unlawful imprisonment. 3 children were taken. 2 were returned to distant relatives. 1 remained in state custody. That one was me. I put all the pieces together over the course of hours. Here's the truth, as best I can now understand it. I was born into a cult. Raised under someone else's rules. My biological parents are a mystery, possibly members, possibly victims, possibly worse. In 1999, the cult was raided. I was 4 years old. Somehow, through connections I still don't fully understand, I ended up in the custody of David and Renee Thompson. My parents. But they weren't just good Samaritans. They took me in under a government protection program. With full legal authority to change my name, my identity, my story. And they did. But they never told me. I didn't plan to confront them that night. But the anger had been building all week. And when I got a text from my mom, "Want to come over for dinner this weekend? Dad's making chicken parm." Something in me snapped. I didn't wait for the weekend. I drove straight there. When they opened the door and saw me, my mom smiled. My dad gave his usual nod. I walked inside, pulled my phone from my bag, opened the photo of the birth certificate, and slammed it on the counter. "You lied to me." My mom blinked. "What is this?" "You tell me," I said. "Who is Emily Rose, redacted? Why is that my real birth certificate? Why is there a court order that says I was taken out of a cult?" My dad's face went pale. My mom looked like she'd just been slapped. She sat down slowly. My dad didn't. He crossed his arms. "You had no right to dig through that," he said. I laughed, in disbelief. I had no right? To find out who I am? You think this is about privacy? My mom whispered, "We were going to tell you. Eventually." When? At my wedding? On your deathbeds? Or never? And then my dad said the line that nearly made me walk out of their lives forever. "We saved you. And this is how you repay us?" I left that night. Didn't look back. I didn't even cry. Not right away. I drove for hours, ended up sleeping in my car at a rest stop because I couldn't stand to go back to my apartment. Everything felt poisoned. Because here's the thing. I understand why they did it. At least, part of me does. They took in a traumatized 4-year-old girl who didn't know her real name, who may have never been outside the compound, and gave her a new life. They wanted to protect me. But protection is not the same as erasure. They didn't just shield me, they rewrote me. They removed any trace of my past. They pretended I'd never been anyone but Rachel Thompson, their bright, polite, suburban daughter. And that's the part one can't forgive. Because when you steal someone's history, even with good intentions, you also steal their autonomy. It's been 5 days since that night. My parents have texted, called, left voicemails, all saying the same things. We love you. We only wanted to keep you safe. This doesn't change anything. But they're wrong. It changes everything. Because I'm not just Rachel anymore. I'm also Emily. And I don't even know what that means yet. I've started seeing a therapist who specializes in identity trauma and recovered memory. Ethan's been more supportive than ever. He's furious, too, though he admits he suspected something was off for years. As for what comes next? I'm not sure. But I know I'm not stopping. I want to find out what happened in that compound. Who my biological parents were. What they believed. And most of all, why no one ever came looking for me. You ever feel like you're standing at the edge of a cliff, and everyone you thought was behind you suddenly starts pushing? That was me, last Sunday. The day I burned every last bridge at once. After confronting my parents, after finding out I was born Emily Rose, redacted, and rescued from a literal cult, I expected them to react with shame. Or at least some accountability. But instead, I got gaslighting. Tears. Guilt trips. You're ungrateful. You don't understand what we went through to protect you. You're lucky we didn't let them put you in foster care. And maybe the worst line of all. We gave you a better life. You should thank us. But I couldn't thank them. Not when I was waking up in a cold sweat every night, wondering who I might have been if I'd known the truth. Wondering what parts of myself were stolen, erased, rewritten by two people who thought love meant ownership. Still, I kept quiet for a few days. I was trying to process. Journal. Talk to my therapist. Get grounded. But then my mom did something that sent me over the edge. She sent out a family-wide email. Subject line, just some family updates. And buried in the middle, sandwiched between Ethan got a promotion, and we're finally fixing the deck, was a single paragraph. Rachel has been going through a bit of an identity crisis lately, but we're supporting her as best we can. Please respect our privacy and don't. My mom tried to act like nothing had happened. She passed around lasagna and made polite conversation with my Aunt Denise. My dad didn't look at me. My younger brother, Josh, 24M, sat 2 seats down, scrolling his phone and acting annoyed at being there. About 15 minutes in, someone asked, "Rachel, how's work been?" That was it. That was the match. I stood up. I said, quiet, calm. Before we get into small talk, there's something I need to say. Everyone stopped eating. I opened the folder and started passing papers around. One by one. Printouts of the articles. The court orders. The birth certificate. Photos. I made sure everyone got one. Then I said, I found out last week that I'm not Rachel Thompson. Or at least, I wasn't born that way. I was born Emily Rose, redacted, and I was rescued from a cult when I was 4 years old. The state placed me into protective custody. My name was changed. And these two, I pointed at my parents, have known the truth this whole time. Dead silence. My mom looked like she'd stopped breathing. My dad's jaw was locked tight. I kept going. They never told me. Not once. They raised me like nothing happened. They erased my past and pretended I was theirs by blood. I had to hack into my dad's cloud to find out who I really am. And when I confronted them, they called me ungrateful. Gasps. Mutters. I saw heads turning between each other, trying to read the papers in front of them. My Aunt Cheryl looked visibly sick. One of my cousins whispered, "Is this a joke?" My mom finally spoke. Whispered, "Really? Rachel, please. Not here. Not like this." I shot back. "Why not? You didn't mind sending a mass email telling everyone I was having an identity crisis. Want to talk about privacy, Mom? Let's talk about what happens when you lie to your child for 24 years. My dad stood up, walked out of the room, and slammed the door to his office. My mom started crying. And that's when all hell broke loose. Some of my family, my Uncle Tom, Aunt Cheryl, and a couple of cousins, sat there stunned, reading every word of the documents. Cheryl looked up and said, "Renee, is this true?" My mom just nodded, face in her hands. And then the other half of the room exploded. My Aunt Karen stood up and said, "What the hell is wrong with you, Rachel? You're humiliating your parents. At a birthday dinner?" Someone else muttered, "This is cruel." And then Josh, my younger brother, slammed his fork down and snapped. "Are you seriously doing this right now?" I turned to him, stunned. "What? You couldn't just talk to them privately? You had to drag this out in front of everyone?" They lied to me. My entire life. "Yeah, and now you're tearing the family apart." I laughed. Bitter. Sharp. "No, they tore the family apart. I'm just the one who lit the match." He shook his head, grabbed his keys, and stormed out of the house. The dinner ended early. Some stayed behind to comfort my mom. Some left in stunned silence. A few, like my cousin Hannah, texted me later and said, "Thank you. That was brave. You deserved the truth." But the dominant reaction was anger. Directed at me. You know what I've realized? People will tolerate anything, lies, abuse, manipulation, if you do it quietly. What they can't tolerate is disruption. Because when you speak the truth out loud, you force people to look at their own silence. To question what else they might have ignored. They want you to keep smiling. Keep passing the lasagna. Keep pretending. But I'm done pretending. It's been 4 days since that dinner. Josh hasn't spoken to me. My mom texted once, asking if I'd calmed down. My dad hasn't acknowledged me at all. Half my extended family is divided between "you're so brave" and "how dare you." And honestly, I don't care anymore. Because I'm finally done carrying the shame they put on me. I didn't ask to be born into a cult. I didn't ask to be erased. And I didn't ask to be lied to for over 2 decades. All I did was find the truth. And I'm going to keep digging. Because I need to know what happened in those first 4 years. Who my biological parents were. Why no one ever came looking for me. And what else my adoptive family might still be hiding. Do you know what it feels like to burn down your own world? Not by accident. Not with some spark you didn't mean to drop. But on purpose. With both hands. With gasoline and a match. That's what I did 2 weeks ago. I stood up at a family dinner, passed out copies of court documents, and told the entire room that my life was a lie. That I wasn't born Rachel Thompson. That I had been Emily Rose, redacted, rescued from a cult, renamed, and raised by people who built my childhood on silence and secrets. And since then? It's been quiet. But not the peaceful kind. The kind that follows an explosion. The kind that settles in like ash. I've officially been ghosted by my parents. They haven't responded to my texts or calls. They haven't reached out through Ethan. They haven't even done the passive-aggressive "here's a forwarded article about forgiveness" thing they used to do when I disagreed with them in college. Nothing. Just a void. Josh, my younger brother, blocked me. On everything. Socials, phone, email. One of my cousins left me a voicemail calling me disgusting and ungrateful. Said I ruined our family. Said I ambushed my parents and embarrassed them in front of everyone who loved them. Meanwhile, I've gotten a few quiet messages from relatives who said they were proud of me for speaking up. But no one's offering support. No one's inviting me to dinner. I'm out. Ostracized. And yet, for the first time in my life, I feel real. And that's because of what happened next. About 3 nights after the family dinner, I was curled up on my couch, flipping through the court documents for the 100th time. I wasn't even reading anymore. I was just existing. Then I saw it. An old email address. Half faded, scrawled in pen in the corner of a document labeled "Placement Order, Emily Rose." It wasn't from the court. It was from the intake worker who'd handled my case. A note next to it read, "For inquiries re, birth mother contact, consent given, 2007. I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened my laptop. I typed a message. Short. Simple. Subject, reaching out. Body. Hi. I believe I'm the child referenced in this file. Born Emily Rose, redacted. DOB, February 14, 95. Please let me know if this email still reaches you, or her. I'm ready to know the truth. Rachel, formerly Emily." I hit send. And then I shut my laptop and tried not to throw up. The reply. I didn't expect a reply. Or at least not right away. But 5 hours later, at 2:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. The notification hit me like a bullet. From Claire R. Subject, Emily. I opened it. And the first line? Oh my God. I never thought I'd hear from you again. I read the message 5 times before I could breathe. She said her name is Claire. She's 43 now. She said she was only 18 when she gave birth to me, terrified, broke, and brainwashed by a man named Jonathan who promised her safety from the outside world. That man was the cult leader. She says the compound started as a community shelter. By the time she realized what it really was, she was already trapped. She told me she tried to run with me once when I was 3, but someone turned her in. She was beaten. She was locked in a shed for 2 days. And after the raid? The state declared her complicit. She said she begged to keep me. Passed every drug test. Completed every parenting class. Got clean. Got help. But the courts didn't believe she could protect me. And for safety reasons, they placed me in a closed adoption, one where neither party would ever know the other's identity. She said she cried for months. She said she's been clean for 18 years. She's remarried now. Has 2 stepkids. A cat. Works as a librarian in a small town. Quiet life. Peaceful. And when she saw my name in her inbox? She said she dropped her phone and cried on the floor. I didn't cry. I just sat there, stunned. Because suddenly this abstract idea of bio mom had a voice. And that voice didn't sound crazy or unhinged or manipulative. She sounded human. She didn't beg to meet. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just said, "If you ever want to know more, I'm here." So now I'm sitting with a choice. Do I go meet her? Do I open that door? Do I sit across from this woman who carried me, lost me, and never stopped looking? Or do I walk away? Do I leave it all in the past and try to build a life forward with no more ghosts? I don't know. I want to know. But I don't know if I can handle it. I've already lost one family. If I lose the second one, too? I don't know who I'll be. And yeah, I keep asking myself. AITA? Was I wrong for what I did? Was it selfish to rip the curtain down at dinner? Was it disrespectful? Was I ungrateful? Or was I finally, after 24 years of living someone else's story, just telling my truth? I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted the truth. But the truth is messy. It doesn't cleanly fit into polite dinners and family photos and holiday cards. It doesn't come with the smell of lasagna and a smiling birthday toast. It wrecks things. And I wrecked things. But maybe they needed wrecking. Ethan's still in my corner. He's pissed at our parents. Pissed at how they handled everything. He told me, "You didn't burn the house down. You just turned on the lights." My therapist says I'm entering a post-traumatic identity reconstruction phase. Sounds clinical. But honestly, it's true. I'm rebuilding. Brick by brick. I don't know what name to use. I still respond to Rachel. But Emily feels like a shadow I need to chase. Maybe I'm both. Maybe I'm neither. Maybe I'm something new. So, AITA? For standing up at a family dinner and telling the truth? For exposing a secret my parents spent 2 decades hiding? For refusing to carry their shame anymore? For answering the question, how's work, with, actually, I used to be a cult baby. I don't know. Maybe I am. But if I had to go back, I'd do it again. Because the truth matters. Even when it costs everything. Especially when it does.